Hi, Pete. How's it going?
I'm very well. Heather, how are you?
I'm good. I don't think I can even begin to compete with the background you have there. You're floating somewhere out in space, which looks pretty amazing.
Yeah, I'm just dodging right now, just a meteor storm behind me. Yeah.
That's really cute. So I wanted to talk to you because you're a very talented practitioner. You have a lot of experience and have taught a lot of people with your 8 Fire School. But also one of the commonalities you and I have is NLP, neuro linguistic programming, and the power of the subconscious mind. And I thought it would be really cool for us to delve into that a bit because, as we both know, that's where it's at. It's not that this is running anything at all. So those programs that we've been conditioned to and stuff have really made a difference in the way we handle any sort of stress, let alone the stress we've been under as a world this past few months.
Yeah, what people are really beginning to understand is being at home in quarantine and social distancing is that when you don't have access to the same support system and you're at home and you're with people, they're going to trigger you. And so obviously there's this context is that if it's triggering you, it was pre-existing in you.
Right.
So, in neurolinguistic programming, which we're both trained in, is that the subconscious mind is attempting to make connection to something. So when you're being triggered, it is usually connecting back to something that happened earlier in childhood. So the struggles are not necessarily new. It's just they've now been amplified. Like everything has been brought to the forefront for everybody. What I
So
love
true.
about, the background here and where we are is that there's no longer a back burner. So people are talking about, it's on the back burner. Well, it's still on the stove, and the stove is now all the burners are on, and everything is basically coming to the surface. So when people have been like messaging me or interacting with me online, um, they're trying to say, I've been trying to not think about COVID. I've been trying to not think about, and of course, one of the prime directives of the subconscious mind is that it can't process a negative.
Right.
So it's like saying the pink elephant, right? You're trying to not think of it, and of course, you end up thinking about it. So the subconscious mind mostly, it speaks in images, even for people who think that they're not visual. I always say to them, okay, if you were to close your eyes and just imagine your kitchen, can you do it? And the answer for everybody is yes. Well, you know what the fridge is, so that's a visualization. So the subconscious mind tends to speak mostly in images. So every time we're being triggered, there's the current image in front of us, and then there's an image under it. And whatever is under it is in the subconscious mind. And that is the stronger image that is basically looking to recreate itself. It's saying, okay, when you're looking at that, here's the actual mental emotional association with it.
And a lot of the stories are they may not even be part of our experience except as a story that was told to us about ourselves or something around us over and over again until we believed it and accepted it as a part of who we are.
Correct.
And I think
And
that's important too, because as you're saying with the triggering, when if you believe something about yourself and someone pushes at it or you see it reflected back at you, really not it's not very pleasant.
yeah, and the premise in NLP is that we know that memory is very subjective. Like it's very easy to have false memory or memory that has been associated with something that's actually not true. But all of our history as a child is mostly given to you through stories of people. It's like, oh, I remember this time this horrific thing happened. They keep telling that story with so much emotion that it's actually hypnotic. So in anything that is hypnotic, if after it bypasses the critical factor, which is that part of you that can say, well, maybe wait a minute here. I don't think that's actually what happened. But there's that much emotion and that much investment into the story. It's like it is now accepted as truth, which is another important part of the subconscious mind is it cannot tell the difference between what you have imagined and what actually happened.
Which can also be used to our advantage.
Absolutely. The reason why everybody has trauma is because A, it was unresolved, and B, there's no memory in the subconscious or in the cellular memory of anything ever changing it. So this is the most important takeaway for me from like NLP and hypnosis when I was trained in it is that if you think about it, the reason why something has been currently a trauma is because it's unresolved, which we know. But the reason why it was unresolved is that there was no change to the memory. There wasn't like, oh yeah, and then I did a healing session on it, or oh yeah, and then I did this, or I worked through it this particular way. So because it doesn't have anything, there's nowhere for it to go, and all it can be is the initial trauma.
So what would you suggest for people to help them kind of work through some of these things if they even recognize them when they're coming up? Because it's not always easy to identify them and go, oh yeah, that's what that is again.
I think the most important thing for people is that they have a very limited vocabulary when it comes to understanding their own emotions. It's become too general. Like, can you differentiate being frustrated from being angry? Some people easily can, other people cannot. And other people are going into fear when in actual fact they're anxious. So really being able to discern your emotional state and to accept it and just say, okay, I can acknowledge that I'm feeling this now. When are other times that I can remember that I have felt this feeling? So what's interesting about NLP is it begins to cross boundaries with other things in a good way, is that all of our negative emotions, all of our fears vibrate at the same frequency. So there's no difference between healing one fear and actually healing a lot of fear or all fear, or one anxiety versus all anxiety. So the same way that it became hardwired for us to respond in NLP, we can access that same frequency and tweak it.
Can you give me an example of that people might understand, like a more concrete example?
Yeah, like I had a client a couple of weeks ago, and he had to get ready to go on a plane because he works for an agency and he's terrified of flying. And so he's like, not only do I have to fly, I now have to fly through all of this. And I thought we were going to be grounded. I thought we weren't going to have to go anywhere. And I'm the only person because other people are off work. And so his anxiety was at a 10. And so his association, as we got into it, his fear of flying, is kind of general when you think about it. Is it really the actual flying? Is it that you're in an enclosed space? What it came down to for him is that he's not in control. There's two people in the cockpit who are flying the plane. He has no say. He can't land it. He doesn't know what to do. And so what we did is we were able to get him into a relaxed state, a trance state, which you and I know is both natural. You enter into that trance state when you first wake up in the morning, after you've carved out after lunch, 45 minutes later, and generally just before bed. Very few people remember actually falling asleep. You remember closing your eyes, and then there's a memory wipe for a few minutes. So that hypnotic state is natural. So we got him into that. We got him to really think about that control. So his subconscious took him back to an event at age 11, whereby he remembers he was having a tantrum and his mother was holding his arms from hitting her, and he couldn't move. And so we went there, we processed it at his current age as an adult, and then we replaced it with a different image. And the image that he had is of him and his mother holding hands and running through a field, which they have done before. So she was kind of like a free spirit, really good for him, but he was prone to tantrums. So when he was given the assignment, he had a tantrum.
Yeah.
Like, no, I can't go, and I don't want to go. And then, but it was a great opportunity. So now when he thinks of flying, the association that he has is not of him being confined or having a tantrum and not being able to move. It's him running through the fields with his mother.
Yeah.
So because we're tapping into that connection, as we change the association with it, it's like, no, that's not what happened. This is what happened. So when he went on to the plane, he's like, I had an amazing experience. There wasn't many people on the plane. Staff, and the in-flight attendants were great with me. I was really good. I watched a movie. Like, I'm waiting for like some kind of other shoe to drop, but there's no story. Like, are you relaxed? Oh yeah, it was awesome. Really great experience. Very restful.
Wow, that's quite the transformation.
Yeah. And so all of us, we have these associations with things right now, like you're being told what you can or cannot do. So that's going to trigger every authority figure in your life who has taken something from your freedom, right? Recess is now done. You're grounded. You're never leaving this house till you're 18. Like, it's bringing it all up, but we're dealing with what we believe right now. And it's true, this is a trigger, and it's true you are being told that. but it is connecting with all of the other events that are linked to it is how it gets its strength. And then for the current cocktail that we're in, there's also a degree of uncertainty because there's a health issue with it. And so for people right now, I had so many clients who self-identify as being psychosomatic or hypochondriac. It's like, oh my God, I just sneezed. Like, do I have COVID? It's like, well, you also said that you have allergies. It's allergy season. Oh, thank God. I've never been so happy to have an allergy. But we create associations when really intense circumstances are put on us. It just bypasses that critical factor, that party that can take a step back and not necessarily consciously agree. And it provides like a barrier, a protective barrier around us where someone can say something about you that's hurtful, but you know it's not true. And that's that barrier that we're talking about. When something intense or surprising happens, we don't have that opportunity to respond that way.
Right.
So the subconscious mind is simply, it's trying to keep you safe, ironically. But in order to do that, sometimes it has to terrify you, and it's trying to deselect things. And we're like, well, no, Heather doesn't need to go skydiving. No, that's not her thing. She's an angel, right? But, she doesn't need to fly in that way. So it will do what it needs to do to make sure that you don't do it. And that's a lot of emotion. And of course, what the subconscious does is it creates scenarios because it has so much information. So what I try to really encourage people during this time is if you think of your life, how many times have the worst case scenarios actually come true? Very little.
That's like, I think it's 4% of the things you worry about are something you can actually do something about or that actually happen.
Yeah. And for most people, like if you're getting into NLP and the subconscious, Heather and I can give you some advice right now that 20% of your issues are creating 80% of your problems. But you're going to focus on the 80% that if you heal them are not going to change your life. So when those people are, chunked up in that way, there's too much information and they're like, well, I have to solve all these little problems. And I'm thinking, well, if you change that, is it really going to change your life? Let's look at the 20% of the core things that are, if we were to look at them, are going to actually really change your life. And, in the crossover between hypnosis and NLP and shamanisms, I always tell people the same thing, is that the associations that you have, the images in your mind, in your heart, are governing your entire life. So you've got to get into what is that core 20%, there's some things, and more importantly, that emotions are not issues in and of themselves. They are responses to things that happen and to scenarios. So if you change this, if you change the emotion, if you change the scenario, you can change the emotion.
Right. I was thinking of something Wayne Dyer said. I often listen to him while I'm making soap and just have it in the background. And he said the last 5 minutes before you go to sleep are the most important because after that, when you're in your subconscious mind, you're marinating in those thoughts for 8 hours or 9 hours or whatever it may be. I'm just thinking about, you used to have some meditations. Do you still have them on your website?
Yes, I do. But actually, all of my meditations are now streaming. So you can find them on Spotify. They are on Amazon Music. Most of the streaming services have them if you just search for Algonquin Medicine Men.
That's awesome.
It will bring up. So we did that at the beginning of COVID because we hadn't done that before because people were asking if we had them. Some people were buying them from the website. We just thought, why don't we just make them available? So you can find them even on YouTube. You can get them for free. So they're a great resource. If you really have to pick, tree meditation is good for people who are just overall need to get grounded and recharged. If you need a team of healers, light beings meditation is for you. Your own little personal concierge.
That like a menu.
Yeah.
That would be, I think that would be something very useful for people before they go to sleep. Instead of winding down, a lot of people start going through their day or their week or what happened, what went wrong, la la la, and then boom, they're asleep and there it is. Pile of what, just to be dealt with. So I think that would be very useful for people. And you also do online events.
Yeah, we have group healing circles that we do every month, and they're free. It's usually the last Wednesday of every month or so. We will do a live broadcast for 2 hours. We introduce a topic for the first hour, we talk about it, and then second hour we do something about it. So I think that's important, you know, because sometimes people want to go to the light right away, but I think the way that we really connect with people is by acknowledging that there's pain, there's hurt, and we're not that thing. But if we can start there by acknowledging it, people feel heard.
And also that makes it a community, right? I mean, there's the power of group healing too. So if you start talking about something like how to handle stress, because definitely we've got stress now, but we always have stress in our life. So it's what we do with it. So if you had an hour discussion and people have aha moments like, oh, that he feels that way too, he's had that experience, then it makes it more powerful somehow.
Yeah, what I love about doing it live is that when people can comment, they are sharing sometimes their experience or their questions, or
Nice.
some people summarize my points as they're going, like kind of highlights, and it's really helpful
Yeah, I can imagine.
because they're going through and people are realizing, you know, I'm not alone anymore. Like, okay, I'm not the only one who's stressed out. I'm not the only one who is going
Exactly.
through this particular thing. So I think that is really beneficial because everyone in wounding feels like they're alone.
Yes. Yes. Um, and you said those are online. So are you still doing them on Facebook, or is it better to go to your website and then find out the information there?
I do them all from my Facebook. So you just have to search for Pete Bernard,
Yeah.
and it just says Algonquin Healer in brackets. And if you go there, you can just follow me or friend request me if I've got some room. And those events, they stream all over the world. So we've got people who watch them from Russia, different places. It's always great to get the demographics, you know, for kind of who's clicking in, because healing is something that we all have in common.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're here for.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much. I'm going to post all your links and everything. If you have any especially favorite NLP sites or sites about this subconscious that you want to share, or anything like that, we will do that as well. Yeah, that's great. How's life on the farm?
The farm is good. I have a very large lawn to cut, and so that is my zen.
I can imagine.
I'm spending a lot of time on the earth, in the earth, and it's been really great.
That's awesome. Well,
Mm-hmm.
I hope we can talk in person soon.
Absolutely. I'd love to come down to Planet Botanics. I'd love to go out for coffee and do things that people used to do.
I remember those times.
I remember those times too. So I would love to come down and spend some time with you.
Sounds great. Thanks so
Okay.
much,
Thank you.
Pete.
Thank you very much, Heather.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.